What is your line again?
Oh, my line is, what is up, guys? I am stoked to be here today with my friend David C. Anderson. Thanks for making the trip,
Hey,
David.
happy to be here, man.
So if you don't know David, he is the face of Knife Center. They're one of the largest online retailers in the world. He has designed knives. You've written about knives. You're a connoisseur, I'm going to call it. And
Pinky out.
today we're going to be exploring why Knife Center has not fired him yet for designing his own knives. He's got some new stuff coming out. We're going to talk about all of it. As well, we're going to enjoy some delicious food that I enjoy. We're going to start off with a mango sucker. And this is going to be a theme throughout these shows, guys. We're going to be pulling in some fantastic food. Some of it will be local.
So is this like a Hot Ones sort of thing?
It's kind of like a Hot Ones.
But we're white and we're in Utah, so it's like mild ones.
Yes,
probably.
it's like Utah Hot Ones. So throw that in your mouth. Give it a try, David.
It's both fruity yet savory.
I love it.
I'm not sure I do. That's fine though, thank you.
David, what are you working on? What's coming out, man?
Well, obviously you mentioned Knife Center, you mentioned my knife design stuff, which is something that's been taken off a little bit more this year. The Pocket Tango came out from MKM earlier this year, same time as your Yipper.
Yep.
And just most recently, got to help debut, or my new first folder.
Let's see it.
Prototypes
Walk
debuted
us through it.
at Blade Show West from
What's
CJRB.
it called?
So this is called the Maximal. It is a 3-inch folder, drop point. Okay, that's a lot of things out there, but so many 3-inch drop point folders are small knives.
Yep.
And what I wanted with the Maximal, I literally designed this to be my most easily recommendable knife to literally anyone.
Cool.
No questions asked. It's small enough to be small.
Yep.
Yet it's got a large, girthy enough handle where you can support bigger cuts with it. It can
Cool.
feel like a bigger knife without actually taking up a ton of space in your pocket. We've got G10 handles here, nice and contoured. The blade shape is versatile. It can do everything from bushcraft to be, some people like, even non-knife people think, oh, I need a knife for, what if it's a self-defense thing? Okay, it's got a little bit of pokey quality to it too, and a little bit of a finger guard. Like so many knives I've designed in my design career, it is a product that I wanted that didn't exist.
See, that's fun.
Right?
Because you and I, David and I have been talking all morning. And we have so many similarities. Like both of us, you have made thousands of videos. I've made thousands of videos, all about knives.
Literally.
And there comes a point when you're like, but why hasn't somebody done this? Like when you look at your knife versus the Banter.
Yeah, I mean, there's clear similarities here, for sure.
Totally different knives, but you're looking at it saying, what do I want? I did the same thing and said, what do I want in a folder?
Yeah.
Now, why did you choose CJRB?
So I went with CJRB. I'm in a really lucky position right now, having networked with so many companies, and I think having built up enough of a reputation that I'm able to kind of pick the partners I'm working with right now.
Yeah.
I called CJRB up, I called up Russell, said, hey, I have this idea for a project. I'd love for you guys to do it, and they immediately said yes.
Cool.
Which is amazing. And I chose them because I knew they could build the knife I wanted for the kind of price point I was looking for. Something, 3 inches, so you can carry it just about everywhere, and you're familiar with that dimension as well.
Yeah.
Completely ambidextrous. I don't have to know whether the person's right or left-handed.
Yep.
All the other qualities I just talked about, but including, I wanted it to be something that would be appealing not just to the knife enthusiast. I wanted it to be something that your average person who doesn't know anything about knives could be into and afford. Your prototypes are out, but this should be hitting the street at less than $50.
Amazing. And what's the steel on it?
RPM 9, so it's their it's essentially a spray form version of 9CR steel.
Cool.
Really good qualities, and that's something a little exciting for the knife nerds, and it's something that's easy to use for the non-knife people as well.
Cool. I love it. That's fantastic. David, while we go into the next question here, my question for you is, you've done thousands of videos.
Literally.
How often do you get recognized on the street? And while you think about that question, I want you to enjoy some funeral potatoes.
Okay.
This is a Utah delicacy. We eat these at funerals. Why? I don't know. This is a Utah fare. It has cornflakes on it. It's full of butter and cream.
I love it.
You love it.
It's fantastic.
There it is. Everyone should come to you. I don't even think you can buy these anywhere. Like, you have to make them.
It's like cheesy hash browns with cereal on it.
Yes, that's a great
That's
description.
excellent.
I love it. So I have been recognized in public before. How often does that happen to you?
It has happened. It's not like an everyday occurrence for sure.
Where's the furthest from home you've been recognized? And maybe most
not,
like random
not
place.
counting knife shows because that's understandable.
Yeah.
The funniest one, I'll give you this, is I was in the hospital
Amazing.
we were in with my newborn. We had to go in. We were in for a couple nights. Everything's fine, fortunately. But so we're tired. We've been, I'm in this hospital room. I'm on a reclining chair. I've got my kid in my arms, no shirt on.
Amazing.
So I'm sitting here like bleary-eyed, shirtless, and this nurse comes in and says, "I saw your name and I thought it was you."
No way.
And I'm just, what do I do?
It's
I'm
like this
it was
intimate family moment,
was-
and you're like, I will now share this with a knife person.
Like I couldn't, like we all couldn't. My wife and I, we just couldn't help but just bust up laughing.
Oh, that's
it was
amazing.
hilarious. It was super gratifying. He said, I have both blade shapes of your pocket tango I've got in the car
way.
in
No way.
in my garage or in the parking garage. He said,
What
I
do you-
thought it was you. I was telling all the nurses about it, but I had to make sure. It's like, oh man.
And he's like checking your chart and your dress and like,
But shirtless. Oh my gosh, come on, man. That's not an image anymore.
I love that story. Let me dive into that for just half a second. Like knives in your personal life, are they one and the same at this point? Like obviously you have your kids, your family. But like knives crept into like this really intimate moment with your family.
Yeah. I mean, they're omnipresent. Yeah.
Omnipresent. That's
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it.
We have another, so that stereotypical thing, this was years ago, before we were married. My now wife, we were sitting on the couch, and she did that stereotypical question, like, what you thinking about? I'm like, knives. And she's like, oh, yeah, makes sense.
Of course. I love it.
I had a faraway look or something, I guess, and she
love
asked
it.
the question.
David, tell me about Nordsmith Knives. What are you doing with it? Where did it start? What's happening with it now? And what is this fat chopper
This
on the
fat
desk?
thing here. So Nordsmith Knives is a brand I started in 2016.
Okay.
Started actually working on it in 2015, but didn't incorporate it until 2016.
Let me stop you. So you entered the industry 11 years ago, so we're talking like 2013?
Like 13-ish, yeah.
So this is-
like real early 2014.
And you started as a
so
writer?
I started as a writer, yeah. So
Okay, so you're 3 years into it, and you're like, now I design a knife.
it was,
Cool.
so I was writing, and it was just kind of
May
this
I?
thing. Yeah, absolutely. This is the Canteen knife, and I'll talk more about it here in just a second. Started as a writer for a blog, and that was my entry into the industry. And, I just kind of had this thing where it's like, I want to be saying something. And so I reached out to this blog who had asked if they would take guest submissions, and that's where it all started.
Cool.
Eventually, I started getting paid a little bit of money to produce a few articles for them a month, and went to some blade shows, and quickly, like, the claws were set, like the hook was set. Like,
Yeah.
I was in,
Cool.
And this was something as well that I had been looking for that didn't exist.
Cool.
It's a camp knife first. I needed to do all my camp knife things, so batoning, fine
food
carving,
prep that too.
but also food
Yeah.
prep with it. That was the thing. That was the crossover that at the time really did not exist. Apart from being like, this is a chef's knife, we've just dressed it up to look like an outdoor
Yeah.
knife. This isn't a true crossover. So I didn't want to take my belt knife and my chef knife when I went camping, because I'm going to be cooking.
Yeah.
I'm going to be cooking there. So that's what this does. It's got just enough drop and enough belly here that you can get that rocking chop
Cool.
on a cutting board.
Cool.
Nothing at the time did that. There's a few more options out there now than there were at the time. I still think this does, and honestly, completely unbiased, this does it better, I think, than
That's cool.
some of the other options.
Who's making this one?
So Nordsmith was, I approached LT Wright.
Cool.
Fantastic gentleman, fantastic friend and mentor at
he's
this
a rock
point.
star.
Oh, he's the best. I'd done some reviews of his stuff. I met him at a local show, and it went from there.
He's doing our new large loop.
Right, which is very cool.
I did not clean this. My knives are disgusting. Yours are all beautiful.
Well, I brought one fresh. I didn't bring my user for
You
the show.
polished yours before we started. I'm like, oh, I should have cleaned that up.
So I had this epiphany one day. There's like 2 times in my life where I can say I had like a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
Where I knew something like was going to change, and one of them was like, I had this one moment where I was like, I need to be like not just writing about knives. I need to be like further in the industry.
Cool.
Like this is what I need to be doing, not just a side thing. And I didn't know what that looked like just yet. My now wife was the first person I talked to this about, and the next day, LT was the second.
Cool.
Where I was like, hey, we've been doing some stuff. I need to be doing more. I've got this idea, which was not as fully fleshed out as this. I didn't even ask him to do it straight up. I was like, I just wanted to like bounce the ideas off. I'm like, what do you like? I need to do something. He's like, well, heck, let's make you a prototype.
Cool.
And it's been this really cool thing. Obviously, it's much more kind of like back burner project now with Knife Center taking up so much of my attention, which is kind of a shame in some ways because like this knife right here made the cover of Knives Illustrated.
That's amazing.
In 2018, which is hugely
That
humbling.
is so cool.
My first knife design.
Well,
to
okay,
hit the market.
so let's.
And yeah, I just don't have the time with kids and Knife Center
Yeah,
to do
but David,
as much more with it.
This is what's so cool to me is you dove into it. You hit the front cover of a magazine, and you're doing this part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up at Knife Center. What year, 2016, 17?
18.
18.
Mm-hmm.
So 2018, you end up at Knife Center. You're the face of Knife Center, thousands of videos. But you already have this stuff going. So I guess one question I have for you, like when I was coming out with the idea of the banter and the poster, I was working at Blade HQ.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, could I do a knife and design it? And Blade HQ is like, this is a conflict of interest. And I'm like, you're right, it is a conflict of interest. Like, how can I go sell a Spyderco and a Benchmade and also buy mine?
My thing, yeah.
You have threaded this needle of designing, being on camera, and working for one of the biggest retailers in the industry. How have you done that?
I think it's because I love knives. Like,
So like we can't get rid of him. He loves it too much.
well, like it helps. Like, why haven't they fired me? It helps that this was established before, a couple years before Knife Center, the Knife Center gig happened. So it already existed. I was up front at the time. Like, is this going to present a problem? And they were like, no, we think that's fine. Because at the end of the day, like if I design something, especially now having more of a known presence, if I design something, Knife Center is going to be able to sell a lot.
Right.
So it's
they're
gonna
happy
make,
about that.
and they like money.
Yeah.
I like money too. I get it. So
Odd.
so that's cool. But like you said, it thousands of videos. We do 3 videos a week on a
crazy.
typical week at Knife Center. I would get bored talking about my own stuff that much.
Yeah.
You know, and
You almost can't.
You almost can't. And
Yeah.
like I love knives so much. I love the people in this industry so much too that, I want to talk about them as well. And it's a respect thing too.
Yeah.
It's respect for those other people. It's a respect for my employer as well,
Yep.
And I've earned that trust. I've earned a certain degree of latitude with them. They know I'm not gonna turn the Knife Center channel into the DCA channel. That makes
Yeah.
no sense. That doesn't work. But I can show them as appropriate. In the pocket tank, we got maybe a little more juice than something else might have normally, but
love
only
it.
a little.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to hit people over the head with just my thing right there. And that trust goes both ways. Like
It's cool.
I don't have anyone sitting over my shoulder saying, make this video, don't say this about this. Like I have a real strong degree of creative
Yeah.
freedom doing what I do there.
But you have expertise and news judgment. And
Mm.
I think those two things are super important. You've talked about a lot of things that you love. What I'm curious about, David, is do you love frog eye salad? My mother made this, so frog eye salad here in Utah. This is a thing. We take a type of pasta, we mix it with Cool Whip, mandarin oranges, pineapple, and it's interesting.
It reminds me of like an ambrosia salad almost.
Okay.
If you're
we
familiar
don't
with
we
that.
don't have that. We
No,
have
no,
frog
no.
eye salad here.
It's similar. It doesn't have pasta in it though.
Okay.
There's a little more Jello and a little more
So
pretzels.
I don't even know the kind of it's
I know what it is though, but I don't know what it's
pepperoni
called.
or something.
I don't know.
Okay, what's your favorite?
That's good. I like it.
What's your favorite so far?
Oh, the potatoes.
Oh,
hands down.
potatoes all day.
Hands down.
I love it. I love it.
You can never go wrong with cheesy potatoes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Butter and cheese. How could it be wrong? David, I've heard from a lot of people out there, and I get this question occasionally. I'd like to be in the knife industry. I'd like to work in this full time. I'd like to be part of it, not just as an enthusiast, but I'd like a job in this. What's it really like?
It's a job.
Yeah.
Everything's a job, but at least I get to go to work and instead of sweating over spreadsheets, although I have to do that sometimes too. Like I get to experience so many things, and that really does help. You have to find a way to keep your passion going in the day job stuff, and that's where this design stuff that is starting. I've got a bunch of irons in the fire right now, not just what's on the table here, is really fulfilling and helps me keep that passion going, because this is talking about the conflict of interest. Like Knife Center's not designing products.
Right. They're selling.
They're
product.
selling products. So this is a muscle that I'm not exercising at my day job that I get to have fun with and be beholden to just me and what I want to do in
That's
my
cool.
creative drive. So like any job, even if it's something you enjoy, make sure you don't stop enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
If that
for
makes
sure,
sense,
for sure.
Find a way to keep yourself invested.
That's a good answer to it. I love that because you've basically diversified into the design side. So you have to do the marketing side, talk about other stuff, but you've also said, okay, I'm going to make my own stuff too. Speaking of your own stuff, let's talk about the Pocket Tango
Sure.
MKM. What is this knife?
So the Pocket Tango was released earlier this year. This is a pocket fixed blade. And my first pocket fixed blade I designed for my Nordsmith brand, that would be the Skipjack. I don't have one here in front of me, unfortunately. The handle is similar. This is kind of an evolution of the Skipjack handle. I didn't know this at the time. When MKM approached, actually both of us at about the same time to do a project, I did not know this fact, but they told me, Igor told me after we launched this, that the whole reason, MKM had a couple of pocket fixed blades in their lineup already. He told me the reason why was because he liked the Skipjack.
Cool.
So like inadvertently, I caused MKM to make pocket fixed blades.
And then caused them to make a pocket fixed blade.
And then they approached me to do one with me as well.
Strangest circular
it's
story.
so cool.
That's cool.
So it is,
May
it's, yeah, absolutely. I kind of consider it like a right-sized pocket fixed blade. Every knife design, no matter what it is an exercise in compromises.
Yep.
And so you have to make this. You're obviously not going to be able to fit as much blade in a fixed blade that'll fit in your pocket. So what is the right size? And I think a lot of them are, on the larger side.
Yeah.
And I wanted something a little bit smaller, something that was easier to access. So this angle to the handle actually plays into that.
Because it kind of pokes out your pocket.
It pokes out your pocket. It stays back and out of the way, so you can still get into your pocket past that handle.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And it's also you're bending your wrist less to get it back in the sheath when you go to resheath it. So simple things like that I get to geek out on, and
So
I'm a Nessmuck guy, so I get to make another Nessmuck.
I love it. I've been having this. This is my Taylor Swift is popular at the moment. She's got her Eras tour,
Tay's Eras experience.
right? Different eras. She's new. Okay. You might discover eventually. But everything is an era right now. Right? Like I'm in my fixed blade era, and you've kind of been in that era for a long time. You're now in your folder era.
Yep, I've got a few folders in the works.
But I'm playing with fixed blades right now, so
which makes me very happy. By the way.
It's fun, but it's interesting because I look at your handle length versus what I've decided to do. There's your Pocket Tango versus the Lander 4. I've decided that pocket fixed blades should be a little shorter, and then I'm going lanyard bead for that fourth finger. So I've done that on both the Lander 4 and the Baby Banter fixed blade. Baby Banter fixed blade is.
Which I haven't held yet, actually.
No, this is your first experience.
And that's a trick you picked up from the Minimalist, isn't it?
100%.
Oh
yes.
yeah, especially
yes.
it's kind of unmistakable with that almost.
Oh yeah,
type
absolutely.
of braid right
I mean, you have to remember, like my background is worked at CRKT for 2.5 years.
That's where we met.
Yeah,
Initially.
yeah. You can't get rid of the sales data and the I remember.
That was not accusatory. By
No.
Yeah.
I actually think it's important, David, because we're all inspired by the world we're around,
Absolutely.
right? And so, I remember I was at Cabela's for CRKT, and this guy walks up. He's like, "I love CRKT," and he whips a Minimalist out on a chain, and it was gross. He'd been wearing it for years, and he's like, "I love this knife," and I'm like, "Well, what do you love about it?" And he rattles off these specs and things, and I'm like, "Cool." And that is in your brain.
Absolutely.
It's the same way you pick up thousands of knives and you say, "What do I want to design?" This is absolutely inspired by that Minimalist. The thing I don't like about the Minimalist is it forces your fingers into the three-fingered grip.
Right. It's a very prescriptive grip.
Yes,
For sure. Yeah.
that's a good way to put that. I like that, the prescriptive grip. I kind of like more of an open handle, a neutral handle. And I said, well, how do you take that idea
And mesh them together.
and mesh them together? So I chopped off a good 1/4 inch on the handle of the Baby Banter versus the Baby Banter fixed blade versus the Baby Banter.
Yeah.
Let's name lots of knives, shall we? But you've gone a very different direction on this. I mean, you've got a choil on there, a forward index choil, but you've added a lot of
more
handle there.
So I come from the fixed blade school more like that's where my passion was initially, mostly. And a fixed blade, the ergonomics on a fixed blade I think are more important than the ergonomics on a folder.
Oh, interesting.
Because fixed blades actually have to work.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Defend your thesis, please.
So a folder doesn't have to be comfortable to be a good folder.
Okay, because
It can't be too uncomfortable. But
Well, and I think there's some Spydercos out there that are like, I saw one the other day. It's shaped like a dog.
the Pochi?
The Poochie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that looks terribly uncomfortable in hand, but it looks like a dog when it
Yeah.
opens, right? So pass.
That's a cool folder though.
Yeah.
To the right person, like it does. The purpose of a folder is not always to get work done, and then you could say that about like artistic fixed blades too, sure. But like I come from the school of like no nonsense bushcraft people. Like it has to feel good, it has to work good. Everything else is secondary. I want it to look good too, but I try to mesh those together. So you got a more complex handle shape here. It's not a flat scale. Thumb scallops, I've used that on a lot of my designs over the years. You can see it on here as well. But it's the 3-finger grip, but instead of the paracord, you have this angle at the
that
back.
you're locking your fourth
Which-
finger in.
It's not even so much about locking. It gives you a little more if you need it, but the ability for your pinky to move that blade around off of that
interesting.
surface right there is pretty cool. It just gives you more control, especially over a small blade like this.
Cool.
It's nice.
That's
you feel like you have
fantastic.
more agility to it.
I like that. See, this is why I enjoy this stuff, because your design philosophy is different than mine. It's not that mine is right and yours is wrong. They're
if
different.
if everyone's was the same, it would be
Yeah.
a very boring place.
I
Very
love
boring
it.
place.
Another interesting fun fact about the Pocket Tango and the Yipper. These came out at the exact same time. This was not planned.
We did
between
not
us.
design these in concert at all.
No, and this is fun to me because it's almost like this parallel design. I looked at the Benchmade 940. I said, that's an interesting blade shape, kind of that reverse Tonto style. I said, there are things about that knife that I don't love. It's got a really thick behind the edge blade stock. And I said, well, what if you thin that out, but you kept that, not pokey stabby, but a little bit of, a little more pokey,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You did something very similar.
But I came at it from a very different angle.
How did you get there?
So I was inspired for this blade by old lamb's foot slip joint blades.
Cool.
So it's similar to a sheep's foot, similar to a sheep's foot, but you have a tapering spine at the same time. And then I poked it out a little more to get a little more pokey as well. But for me, it was more that classic lamb's foot slip joints
That's fun.
and convergent evolution. You've talked about that.
I've
before.
talked a lot about that. No, and I think there are moments too, and I would say that this is a pocket fixed blade moment.
Absolutely.
In the knife industry.
Absolutely.
I was blown away. We launched this thing on Kickstarter, and people were just like, they didn't even think about it. They jumped on it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I knew this was a trend. I didn't realize how big of a trend it was until I made one. And so I think there's convergent.
I've been like beating this drum for like better part of a decade, so I'm
Yeah.
real happy to see it.
Well,
come to
but
fruition
I
right
think
now.
this is where like there's convergent evolution within, like if the temperature is 75 degrees and sunny all the time, the creatures are going to evolve the same way.
Right.
And right now that 75 and sunny is pocket
the
fixed
pocket
blades,
fixed blade.
which is kind of fascinating to me.
Can we talk about sheaths for a minute?
Absolutely.
I heard you, I believe, on this very show saying for a pocket fixed blade, you gotta have an ulti clip.
Okay, let me clarify that.
But go ahead. I wanted to
No, I think that's
launch off on this.
I think you have to have a way to connect it to the pocket,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you draw it. So what do I have with an multi-clip on it? There's a good example. Lulu sheath.
Mm-hmm.
When you draw it, the sheath stays,
Yes.
and the blade comes. And I know that sounds really stupid in terms of like, well, Captain Obvious, thank
Right.
you. But
But it's easy to get wrong.
it's easy to get wrong. And so I think what I was saying, it has to have a way to put an ulti clip on it, or conceptually, you must be able to attach it to your pocket firmly. Even
Elsewise,
if
it's not a pocket fixed blade.
yes,
Yeah.
even if it's a sheath where like the leather, if you're starting to pull this up and this does this thing, no.
Yeah.
It needs to stay fixed.
So I brought this up to sort of defend the MKM
I love
magnetic pocket sheath,
Yeah.
really. So it was a self-serving question.
I know,
So-
I could see the leading. It was great.
So the thing, this kind of breaks one of my own rules where I say, like, if you have to explain a thing, you've already lost somebody.
Sure.
But like any leather sheath, leather's got to break in a little bit. So out of the box, these, there were complaints about these kind of slipping out of the sheath coming out with the knife. Carry it a little bit, it's going to break in beautifully, and then it's super, super easy. Like, once you got it, for me, it's just a little push off with the index finger, and then the knife comes, sheath stays in place.
Yeah.
And it's so convenient to come in and out when
Yep.
you want it to. It stays put when you're down. So that was a self-serving.
No, and do you know what? They have done incredibly well with this magnetic sheath.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's one of those ideas that you're like, oh, I should have thought of that.
Yeah.
I saw one of
I
those
wish,
the other day.
I wish I could take credit for, like, the Pocket Tango is great. I wish I could take credit for the sheath,
no,
but I
this
can't.
is already in there. This is
Yeah.
actually Igor's design.
It is, yeah. He had that
which
idea.
is super cool. I saw one the other day. I can't remember the company. You probably can tell me exactly. They have a pocket clip that you just squeeze it and pull it
Yeah,
out.
that's a new SRM thing.
SRM, yeah.
Those are very cool. And
And-
those
and-
knives are like stupidly good for the price, actually.
I look at that, I think, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
You know, when you see it
It's
in action,
elegant,
it's like,
it's cool.
it's simple.
You don't have any screws
Yes.
to see. Like it's very clean from a design. You can have a reversible pocket clip without having screws on the
Yeah.
other side.
It's fascinating to me. David, we're on to
love
the
it.
next food at
We're
this
talking
point.
a lot.
No, this is fun. This is called green jello here in Utah.
Where does it get its name from?
Well, if you look at it, it's green and it's jello. This is a Utah delicacy. You suspend fruit, and in this case, vegetable, inside of the jello.
I mean, that's a Midwest thing through
Do
and through.
you do
sure.
this too? No, I guess you're not Midwest, but do they do
I was
this?
born in Indiana.
Were you
I
really?
do.
This has carrots suspended in it. I don't. My mom usually. She actually made these, by the way. She usually puts fruit in there, but I was like, today we put carrots. I think the carrots are kind of gross in there. I'm not gonna lie.
I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I hate Jell-O.
Really?
But I'm a good sport.
You're a great sport. Who's winning? Funeral Potatoes?
Oh, it's gonna be a hard bar to clear right there. I ran out of room on my little stool over here.
I love it. So, David, one of the last questions I want to ask you here is right now there's this explosion of new brands, whether they're US brands, China brands. You got all of these brands coming from all over the place.
It's hard even for like me, a guy who helps sell these things, to keep track of. Quite honestly.
So I guess my question from a retailer perspective, kind of putting on your Knife Center hat, and not speaking for the company, but from your perspective, you've worked with these brands, CRKT, Spyderco, Benchmade. You kind of have your like top 10 that have been around, I don't know, 20 to 35 years, Chris Reeve knives. What makes a brand stick around for 30 years and have longevity versus other brands that kind of fall off? And even in my career, I've seen brands kind of come and go. And
I was like, is this a self-serving question?
it absolutely
for these guys?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, NAFS is a new company
Yeah,
when it comes.
yeah.
We've been around since 2018 officially. We took it full time 2 years ago. What, in your opinion, makes a brand stick around long term? And I think it's probably a good question for you too,
Yeah,
with
no,
Nordsmith and
yeah.
all that you're doing.
Well, I think one of the things you guys are doing well is there's a certain amount of consistency and strategy to your releases.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
a certain amount. I did say a certain amount.
I'm honored.
There's so many, and this goes for like the one-man knife makers out there too, not just companies as well. Like, you know, you got to have a strategy, and you got to make things. If you're looking for since you asked from a retailer's perspective, like if you want a dealer to help you, make things as easy as possible for that dealer to work with you on.
Give me an example.
You know, communication. Like backing up, we'll get to that's not a dig.
No, it's so true. I mean, answer your emails.
Building a good knife is important. It is the least important part of having a successful knife company, because you've got to be a business person first. Like, you know, the knife business that you're creating doesn't matter if the knife is good or not. Well, it does. Like I said, it does. But the most important thing, once you have that product, is communicating with dealers what you can do for them, giving them, you know, promotional material to help them talk about you. If it's easy for the dealer to talk about you, they're going to talk about you.
Yeah.
If it's harder, you might not get talked about as much. That happens with us all the time. Like, if I've got resources from your brand about the knife, I can talk about it without that, or I can talk about it with that and have so much more to say and make it so much more interesting, which is going to be interesting to folks out there.
make it smooth.
Make it smooth.
Yeah.
And it's from that marketing side to the bookkeeping. Like, don't make it hard for them to reorder. You know, there have been brands that have been guilty of that. Don't discontinue something and then not tell a retailer about it. So now they've got back orders, and now they got to go call their customer and say, hey, we can't fulfill this back order anymore. You're not going to have a fond opinion of that company as the retailer. And, you know, that will affect things.
Yeah.
Make everything from the marketing to the billing to the ordering the smoothest you can make that for a dealer and a retailer, the better your relationship's going to be with them.
That's cool. Earlier, you and I were chatting about how there are knife makers that just want to be like hobbits at a grinding wheel.
Yeah.
and they don't want to deal with marketing, and they don't want to deal with sales, and they don't want
Yeah.
to deal with emails. I think part of what I love about this industry is if you can communicate,
Yeah.
and if you can be good at something, you'll do all right.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Well, knife makers who want to do it as a business need to know what it
Learn some
like
business.
learn some business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like making and those lessons apply to anything. If you're making a widget, for
Yeah.
A Scotch tape dispenser or whatever. No brand names, please. Whatever you're doing, all the other things have to support it. Like the thing you're actually making for any company that makes anything out there, once you get it right, that is then like the least important thing you do after you get it right. Is you got to do everything
It all
else.
turns into putting it on rails.
Yeah.
I love it. David, we've got one
Finally.
last question for you.
I have a question for
Oh,
you.
yes.
I don't know if it applies to this one or not. So, well,
No.
never
You
mind.
can't preface and
sorry,
say I
I'm
have a
sorry.
question and leave me hanging. David, I need a question.
I got to put you off your guard. No, so here's a question. Since we were talking about starting a new business, obviously you did that.
Yeah.
You're having some.
I'm in it.
You're having a certain degree of success with that, anyway.
We haven't gone under
That's
yet.
a joke. That's a joke. So we talked a little bit about I'm designing stuff for Knife Center. They don't have a problem with that. That was not quite your same experience.
No.
Blade HQ didn't like that idea so much.
And I don't blame him for that. I need to clarify
Sure.
that. But yeah.
Like there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm very I feel like I'm super fortunate to have this situation.
It's
in front
cool.
of me.
I don't see it often.
If they had no problem with you designing stuff and selling it, would NAFs exist today?
It's such a good question. You asked it to me earlier, and I don't have a good answer. So, if Blade HQ had allowed me to design things and stay in house, I would say I probably would have moved on eventually anyway. This goes back to what I told you in the car driving up here. It is amazing what full time will do for an endeavor that you're passionate about, and that is so. We released my knife poster. We sold it to Blade HQ exclusively. I think we made $2,500. I have a picture of me holding this check from my employer, but not my employer.
Right.
This is my only dealer, and I'm holding this check
right.
from these knife posters we made. And dang it, there was something intoxicating about that, David.
Yeah.
I said, wow, I can make my own money. It was almost like somebody had given me a seed and said, like, here's a corn seed.
Right.
See what you can do.
Right.
And like 6 months later, I'm like, there's corn. I can eat it. I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, that was such an invigorating moment for me. And I guess to answer your question, I think there would have come a point when I realized, okay, I can't keep doing this marketing manager thing over here and growing this new corn over here,
Right.
and it's so tasty and sweet, and I
Right,
love it, and I
right.
love to boil it and put it in a stew and all this stuff. Well, I have to balance this plate over here, and I think eventually those things would have parted ways anyway. But I look at every experience I've had, and it has helped me understand the world. Like the number of contacts I got from Blade HQ and the opportunity to be in front of so many people on the internet. It was a springboard to my
It's the
career.
same. Like I've got that same feeling. Like, yeah, the connections and the stuff I've learned.
Literally,
is
my
invaluable.
designer maker mark is "What is up, guys?"
Yeah.
which
Oh,
was
that's your line.
that's my
That's
line.
your line. That's what it is.
Definitely came
Yeah.
from
well, the banter. The
yeah,
name of the knife.
the name of the
for
knife,
sure,
right?
for sure.
So I think it's part of my history, but I think eventually that history had to diverge.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's healthy. David, I have one last question for you and one last thing to try. This
right.
is a Chinese plum. Just pop it in. It has a pit, so it's more of a
Okay.
suck on it than a chew it. Throw it in there. How do you like that?
It's got like a interesting sweetness to it.
Yeah, I think they coat it with something.
Yeah.
My
Oh,
last
MSG.
question for you, David, while this is in your mouth, if you could do it all again, would you still choose knives? No, you have to leave it in your
I don't
mouth,
wanna talk
David.
around-
No,
okay,
you
fine.
must.
Well, let me tell you. I don't think I had a choice.
The knives chose you.
Ethan Becker said to me one time, who I'm really, really fortunate to have made connections with him. He's been a huge mentor in my life, and he and I are actually collaborating on some future
I've
designs
heard
right
some
now.
things that are exciting.
That's not really been made super public yet. I made sure he was okay with me mentioning that, but he told me on the show today. But he told me one point. I think this is so apt. Once knives and the knife industry, however you want to define it, once that gets its claws into you, very few people make it out alive. And I don't think I would. I don't think I had a choice. Like this is what was supposed to happen, and
Well said.
it would happen again in a heartbeat.
Well said. I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find David C. Anderson on the internet where?
Knife Center, of course, is my day job. I do all kinds of videos over there 3 times a week, as mentioned. You can check out Nordsmith Knives. Every once in a while, I'm able to have something in stock to ship to folks. You can check out my Instagram, DCA Knives, as well. I'm working on spinning up a website for that still as well. But
I love it. David, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
my pleasure. Man.
Thank you guys for watching. If you like this sort of stuff, we'll have more coming out. Definitely subscribe to the channel and check out David C. Anderson's Knives. Thanks, guys.
Knives. Thanks.
Knives.com, too.